Kiwi Yarns with Brodie Kane.
Kia ora te whānau and welcome to Kiwi Yarns. It's a big day, it's a very exciting day, and today's guest is a woman that I would hazard a guess has been in, do you reckon every single person's home at least once over the past 2 decades?
I would like to think so.
I would like to
Everybody
think so.
watches TV3, right?
Of course they do. Our wonderful Samantha Hayes was 23 when she first became a presenter on the then Nightline and was the country's youngest presenter at the time. Now, she fronts 3 News solo, actually in the very same room that we're in right now. We'll get to that in a minute. You are a senior correspondent for Stuff after what can only be described as a rather tumultuous 2024, but you have had an exceptional career. You've clocked some fascinating adventures and experiences. Thank you for being my first guest and technically what is your house, but kind of you've let me move in. So welcome to Kiwi Yarns.
Oh, it's good to be here, Brodie. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Now, just establish the rules with me. I have taken over like your desk and whatnot. What time do we need to be out? 10 to 6, quarter to 6?
A little bit before then, but
Okay.
we can work on that. Yeah, we can work on that. Yeah, it's all done in a different way these days, and it's been a big adjustment for me since we finished Newshub, which was on a big hard set. So, you know, in real life, all of the things that you saw were physically in the room. Now we have a physical desk and chair, and some of the elements are there, but most of it is just a big green cave, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're in your beautiful studio here, but
know.
it's actually my studio. My desk is just over there, and I'll be needing that later on.
And so, okay, that's fine. And so I'll just make sure, quarter to 6, good as gold. I'm just going to do a little shout out as well. We've had some beautiful furniture hooked up by Freedom Furniture. And gosh, I tell you, the batch is looking beautiful, isn't it?
That's just
I
looking
really
good.
like what I've done with the
Yeah.
place. We can't tell people where it is though.
What? Because
It's an undisclosed location.
okay.
Yeah. Because they'll want to know where the beach is.
cozy.
They'll want to know where the
nice spot you've magicked up.
They'll want to know where the beach is. They can't know. They'll never know. Now, my first question to everyone always is, and it's not the throwaway version, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually really, really good. I think it, as you say, it was a tumultuous year last year. 2024 was pretty bumpy, and that was coming off a bumpy year for me at any rate, personally. And yeah, it turns out I did just need a bit of a holiday. Christmas was wonderful, New Year, January, and then we've sort of dived into 2025. And 3 News, the show is great. The team's working seamlessly together. We're doing what we love, which is doing the news. And yeah, I'm really enjoying being with Stuff and our 3 News team.
There are moving parts that you have slightly alluded to, and I sort of thought when you and I spoke the other day about how we would discuss what we're going to discuss, then I thought, where will we start? But actually I do want to start with the 22, 23-year-old Sam who got the Nightline presenting job. At the time, at the moment that you got the job, was that like dream job?
Oh, absolutely. So I first started at TV3 when I was 17 on work experience. I was doing a course in journalism straight out of school, and part of it was a month's work experience at a place of your choosing. And I wanted to do the 6 o'clock news at TV3 and they said no, but Nightline said yes. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go up.
Fine.
Okay, no, I'll go up. And I came up to Auckland. And you've got to remember, I grew up in a very small town in South Otago and, you know, population 2,000 people. And Auckland was the big smoke for me. And I still to this day remember walking in the big front doors at TV3 and, you know, seeing all the famous faces around and just being gobsmacked by how awesome it was making the news. You know, I used to watch TV and listen to the radio at home as a kid and think, how do they know what to say? How do they know what they're doing? How do they have all this information? And I thought, wouldn't it just be amazing to have a job where every single day you get to find out about what's going on in the world and then communicate that to people like me, the kid in Milton in South Otago, so that other people can also understand it in a way that they might not otherwise. And so, yeah, did the work experience at 17, then went away, did a degree at uni and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got the job, I just couldn't really believe it. You'll love this, actually. I've never really told this before, but so I got the job as a reporter, and then within a few months they flew me up to Auckland for a screen test. I worried so much about it, I freaked myself out about it so much that by the time I got to Auckland, I had a giant disfiguring cold sore on my face.
Nah. as a cold sore sufferer.
I tried to delay it. I said, I cannot possibly do it. And they said, no, off you go, do it. And somehow I still got the job.
just as I say, as a cold sore sufferer. So what did you go? Did you lipstick over it? What did you do?
They
Or did you just did you raw dog it?
No, they tried to put lipstick over. I was just like, this is not.
Oh, I feel that deep within my soul. Oh my God. Let's go back to 17-year-old you before we come back to 23-year-old you.
Yeah.
Because what I love is that you walked in and you were doing an internship, and Gus, who you still work with, was like,
yeah, he's out in the,
he's literally
in the
out
newsroom
there
at the moment. Yeah.
He was like, oh, what are you here? How long are you here for? And
I turned up, and this was the biggest day of my life. And I, you know, the billboards outside have got John Campbell and Mike McRoberts and Hilary Barry and the likes on them. And I come in, and someone takes me down to where Nightline is, and Gus turns around and he goes, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here on work experience." And he goes, "Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, I did talk to someone about that. How long are you here for?" And I said, "A month." And he goes, "I thought it was only a couple of days." I just was like, "Okay, that's fine. We can just, you know, I'll just make myself useful." And the biggest thing I learned right at the beginning of that internship was, you can. There's always something to do in a newsroom. So even if you're just there on work experience, you can't just sit back and think, "Oh, is someone going to give me something to do?" You can always you use your initiative. You always can find something to do. And actually, by the end of that first week, I'd had my very first story on television.
now, was that the Megadeth
Yeah.
story? So
Yeah.
you're 17 and you go from Milton to Megadeth. And like, because I don't know, I mean, this might be an assumption, but I'm picking that Megadeth weren't, like, you didn't have their CD back then. Was this?
So luckily, I certainly did not.
Yeah.
No, I didn't even, I barely knew who Megadeth was,
Yeah.
you know. But luckily, my brother did, and he was a big fan of Metallica, so he's a couple of years older than me, listened to Metallica a lot, and he'd bought this Megadeth CD. And all I knew, Brodie, when I was sent out at the last minute because another reporter was unwell, literally, Gus took this phone call from a publicist. He was trying to cancel the interview. I could hear her screaming down the phone saying, "It's an exclusive. You've got to send somebody. Surely there's somebody." And he looks around the newsroom and goes, "Oh, yeah, I've got someone. She'll be there in 15 minutes," sort of thing. And all I knew was that the lead singer of Megadeth used to be in Metallica and wasn't anymore, and something had gone down. That's all I knew.
But were you allowed to ask them about that? Probably not.
Well, so this is sort of pre-Google. So I mean, Google was around.
Yeah.
Google was around. What are we talking? 2001. Google was around, but it wasn't useful. It was, you know. So you sort of.
We would have been packing dial-up then, wouldn't we? Surely we're still on dial-up.
It wouldn't have been great. No,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any time as it was anyway. So in the crew car, and I was sitting in the front seat for the first time because I'd been in the back tagging along with the likes of Amanda Gillies and all these amazing journos, sitting in the front seat with the camera operator, and I was writing down questions in my notepad, just trying to come up with anything. When we got there, the camera operator set up, and the band manager came down, and I said to him, "Oh, hey, just before they come out." So I was going to ask them about this kind of stuff, and I was running through my questions, which were like, how many people are in the band, and have they ever been to New Zealand before?
Yep.
Do they like New Zealand? And he just looked at me, and he sort of looked me up and down, and he said, "If they realise for 1 minute that you do not know who they are, they will walk out." And this is how it began. They came in to sit down and do the interview. Dave Mustaine, the lead singer, said, "I don't like this. You need to reset up elsewhere." And they did walk out. So it wasn't a hollow threat. And so I'm furiously crossing out questions. We're relocating the whole setup 30 floors up in a different hotel room. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to come at this in a way that makes it look like I know what I'm talking about.
Well, you're absolutely bricking it.
I think it was, but I don't know. I've reflected on this over the years, and I think there's just something about my personality that knows that I should be freaking out.
Yeah.
That understands that. I mean, I knew that this was potentially my big break, just like with the screen test. But
with the cold sore.
Luckily, there was not enough time for that to happen. Yeah. And I knew what was kind of riding on this opportunity, but also there was no expectation. They'd sent the work experience chick out to interview the sort of big, scary heavy metal band from America, and they weren't really expecting much to come out of it. And so, look, I opened the interview just with some like really, I was vague. I was as vague as I possibly could be. I asked them things like, you guys are heavy metal rockers, do you trash your hotel room? And they said, surprisingly, no, we actually make the bed every day. So that was interesting. And then I just said, vaguest question on earth, if you could make music with anybody alive today, who would it be? And Dave Mustaine, the lead singer, kind of like looked at me, and the guitarist had been sort of winking at me the whole way through. That was weird. But he looked at me and he sort of said, yeah. And he went into this big spiel about Metallica, how he would love to get rid of the animosity. And we also went on to talk about, I was like, why have you called yourselves Megadeth? And he said, well, how do you out-metal a band that's got metal in its name, because I used to be Metallica, so now that's how he came up with that. And he said he would want to get back together and make music with them. And the band manager is literally doing these ones in the background, trying to get me to can the interview. Asked a few more questions and then, thanked them and off they went. And the band manager came up to me and said, you have no idea what just happened. He said that he's never spoken about it since he left.
Wow.
And he told me about how, he left because he was a violent drunk.
Yeah.
He was dangerous. He, was a danger to his bandmates.
God.
Yeah, and so I went back.
Day.
I went, so I
It's all
came
on the first day, guys.
So I come back, and I think it was actually day 2 or day 3.
yeah.
Actually of the internship. And I went back and I told Gus about it, and he promptly sent me back down to get cutaways of me there because he said, we'll make it a story about how the work experience kid went out and got this international scoop.
Do you know what I love? What you've just done is, and I would also assume that you could do this with every story. You remember them like it was yesterday. Like all these sort of like poignant moments, whether it's when you were 17, whether it's like in Antarctica, wherever you are, there are these hilarious and sort of awkward, wild moments in your career where you're like, I know what I was like. I remember the day that Sir Howard Morrison died, and I remember it because I was about to go to Fashion Week and interview Pamela Anderson, and I was wearing these at the time beautiful shiny black ruche pants, heels, and a little shift t-shirt, and I was so excited about going to Fashion Week. I think I was about 22, 23. And then Mel Jones rings me and says, I need you to pack your bag and you're going to Rotorua. Sir Howard Morrison's died. And I was like, so there's no Pamela Anderson. She's like, no, there's no Pamela Anderson.
Well, our priorities have changed,
Yes,
Brodie.
yes.
Our priorities have changed.
Went down there, had the most special and really memorable time covering his tangi, but just the vividness of your memories of those types of stories is quite remarkable, right?
With you pointing that out too, I wonder whether part of it is because it's filmed as well. So, and you not only experience it at the time, but then you go back to the newsroom and then you work. And this is what I love about television: you work collaboratively with your camera operator at the time, but then your editor and your producer, and so you're not only doing the interview and talking to somebody and filming maybe an event that's happening or a disaster, whatever it might be, but then you spend this very kind of intimate time piecing together a story that is true to what happened, but also, if you're doing your job properly, I think, eliciting some kind of either intellectual or emotional response from the people that will be watching it. And that's the craft, and that's what I love about storytelling, that you can do that and make people care about the issue or the person in the way that you do, and the reason why you're doing it as a journalist.
So we're back to 23-year-old cold sore wearing Sam, who gets the gig at Nightline.
Yep.
Youngest at the time, and you have told me that they made you look older and that it was quite a rough ride in terms of there's no rule book in terms of people writing about you, people's opinions of you.
It was different back then.
Yeah.
It was ruthless, yeah.
So how at the time did that feel as someone that was still really young?
Well, I was still essentially a kid from Milton. I'd completed my my journalism diploma. I'd been to university, I'd been at Otago, and I'd also gone to Victoria and Wellington, and I'd lived a little, I'd travelled and whatnot, but I was still a young person, and I was learning about the world at the same time as I was learning to navigate the cutthroat media industry that we operate in, and I guess there were lots of people that didn't understand why I had the job that I had. I didn't either. I look back and I've said this to my boss at the time, to Mark Jennings. What were you thinking? Why did you give that role to me when you had all these other talented people around? It was a very odd move.
And what was his answer?
He said, I just thought you'd be able to do it. And away I went. I mean, my personality type is that I love a challenge. And I, to be kind of cheesy for a second, I do believe that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. And I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. It's just something I've had to do since then, basically, because I realised, when you go and you interview that band and in that moment know that the rest of your life could be hinging on this being successful or not being successful. So many shoots are like that. So many live TV is like that. Every single time you go live, anything could happen. We should talk about Dancing with the Stars, because that's a really good example of the terror, the kind of full body, like this could be one of the worst moments of my life if it goes badly. But I don't know. I liked the kind of thrill of that.
Yeah.
So every single night doing Nightline, my heart would be beating so loudly I would think that the microphone would pick it up and I could barely breathe, but then I would somehow sort of do it. And I was just desperate to learn and keen to learn, and any feedback I got, I absorbed. And then I just had to learn how to ignore the stuff that wasn't so nice,
That was also, but that was back in the time. Okay, there wasn't a lot of social media, but there were
it was in the newspaper
gossip,
every week,
every Sunday, right?
It'd be on the front page of the newspaper, or it would be on the back page of the newspaper, and I'd get criticised for what I wore. I'd get criticised for if I dressed up too much, or if I didn't dress up enough, or if I wore sunglasses, or if I wasn't wearing them. There was. It felt like to me that there was just this unnecessary criticism of me as a young woman that was totally unrelated to my job, but was a way that they could sort of talk about me and put me in the newspaper. I actually hit up the editor at the time and said, why do you do it? And he said, what do you think? And I said, I don't actually understand. I would like you to tell me. And he said, well, it sells newspapers. And so, I mean, at that point I kind of understood it a bit more, and what was hard is that people believed it.
Yeah.
Even savvy media people that I worked with in the newsroom thought, like, for example, some of it was intrusive. Like, I would get photographs taken of me at the beach with my family members or with my my boyfriend or whatever, and they didn't believe that there was such a thing as paparazzi in New Zealand, and they all thought that I'd set it up. Which was it was the worst part. It was like, not only does this feel incredibly intrusive and creepy that someone is hiding in the sand dunes taking photos of me with a long lens, but also that people that should know and understand the media world think that, somehow I've arranged that when, definitely not.
Do you think as well, going back to you getting that job, and I dare say it was at a time where, well, gosh, the media industry definitely has changed since then, but that because it was quite competitive and quite cutthroat, and you would like to assume that behaviours have changed in various places now, but that there was jealousy? Like, did you feel jealousy among your peers in terms of getting that kind of gig and actually probably being the person that they are writing about?
Look, I was surrounded by so many talented people, and I don't think I understood at the time just how much of a sort of plum job it was, I mean, I certainly loved the opportunity, and I desperately wanted to do a good job, and I mean, look, looking back, that probably might contextualise it a little bit. There were some people that were a bit more overt about it, but I have to say that I have been extremely lucky to work in an environment that is supportive and caring, and some of my best friendships have come out of that newsroom. So working at 3 I was there for 18 years before the Newshub shut down, and like my whole adult life, if you think about it, and was fortunate that every time I kind of felt like, I need to go and spread my wings or do something different, they would say, okay, well, what would you like to do? And would kind of work with me to put another challenge in front. They knew that I liked challenges, so they'd put another challenge, another show, or another facet of journalism that I could sort of grow into. But yeah, look, mainly the people that I worked with are absolutely incredible.
Do you feel that you had to or chose to, or it might have been natural, became guarded or protective of yourself because of coming out into a role, people having opinions of you, what you look, what you dress, who you're dating, whatever? Do you think that that contributed or has contributed to the person you've grown up to be? Or have you actually broken through and out of that and gone, actually, yes, that was part of me then, but I don't care so much now?
Oh, yeah. I used to read, we had this thing called the feedback log, and back in the day, people would phone, they would phone the front desk. And they would
the old
phone
blower.
the front desk and give their feedback.
Samantha
and
Hayes
it would
there,
go into
please.
this log, and you could log into it on the internet or whatever it was back then, and you could read the comments. Was so, like, some were appalling, but mainly they were funny. And I just was obsessed with it. I loved it. I kind of got a kick out of it. I guess. Yeah, I mean, people will say what they want to say, but do you let it impact you or not? And I had to learn that very quickly. And it was just more about me getting on with the job, doing what I wanted to do. I wasn't really focused on it that much. I'm probably guarded about some things in my life, particularly to do with my children. And but I also do think that when you are in people's living rooms every single night, people do deserve to know you a little bit. And I am quite a private person, I guess, but yeah, going back to Dancing with the Stars, actually, that was in 2018, and it was a moment where I realised, actually, letting people in a little bit more, or a lot, as was the case with that show, was a really beautiful experience, and was okay. Nothing bad happened. It was fine. It was actually really good, and created a connection with the audience that wasn't there otherwise from the news. And then, and then in other later parts of my life, going on parental leave, and when I had my son Marlo and then my daughter Amaya, I became an audience member watching the telly from my couch. And yes, my view is skewed because I've been in the media for so long, but I realised that actually so much of why we turn the TV on and why we tune into the 6 o'clock news on 3 every night is, or whatever program it may be, it's actually in part about companionship and connection and wanting to see that person because you trust them and because you get who they are. And so I don't think you can do my job without giving up a big part of yourself. And I've become comfortable with that over the years, yeah.
Is it also, like if I look at your career, the stories that you've covered, and, a massive piece of that having been the anchor of the 6 o'clock news, is that has there been a mantra of report... Do the news, don't be the news, obviously until last year. But
never want to be the news.
No.
Yeah.
But exactly. So maintaining I'm here to do a job. It's not my job to tell people what to think.
No, it's not my job to tell people what to think. No. I don't write opinion pieces. I do a lot of stories, but I present the facts of the story, and every single story obviously has the fingerprints of the person who put it together on it, but it's not my job to tell you what to think about something. Do I like to go and find stories that show you perhaps a facet of society or your community or New Zealand that you wouldn't otherwise see? Yes, and that's sort of a lot of the gang reporting that I've done, and or whether it's as you say in Antarctica with the scientists working down there, or heading into the jungles of Costa Rica following old Pete Bethune on his latest eco mission, or whatever it might be. I love doing those stories, but it's not up to me to make people think a particular way. That's up to you to decide after you've seen it.
You're sitting across from me. You're one of the most glamorous, beautiful women I know. And my mum, she has been...
I love your mum.
She's been obsessed with you. She loves you, full girl crush.
She's amazing.
Full girl crush.
Well, right back at your mum.
But let's bear in mind, as you have said, you're a country kid.
I am, yeah.
Born in South Africa.
Right, yeah.
Born in South Africa, but moved with mum and dad back to dad's hometown.
So
of
dad's
Milton.
a Kiwi, mum's South African. Yeah, they met in South Africa, and my brother and I were born there. Well, my brother was born there. They came to New Zealand. They went back briefly. I was born there, and then they came back to New Zealand permanently, and my sister was born here.
And so you're in deep in the bowels of South Otago. You're good with a rifle. You're good at deer hunting, and apparently a dab hand with a fishing rod.
I can catch a fish. Yeah.
So when I see this Sam here, like,
I can fillet a fish too if you want me to.
Can you?
I don't eat fish, but I can do it. I learnt when I was little, so it's embedded. Yeah.
So is that like, so when you go back there, or you're down there at Chrissy and that, there's no beautiful colour coordinated frock. It's back to the gumboots and
God, no makeup.
Yeah,
no way. Sunscreen. Always wear sunscreen.
Yeah,
always wear sunscreen. But no, I had a really beautiful childhood. Mum and Dad in Milton, and small town, small school meant I had all these opportunities that I might not have otherwise had. And played netball and rode horses. So my auntie and uncle have this big, beautiful farm up in, it's about 20 minutes drive from home, and near Lawrence. And it's a big...
Another huge part of Central Otago town.
Well,
Lawrence,
Lawrence
Milton.
population.
I love the names.
Lawrence is probably maybe 500 people. I don't know. I might be doing it disservice, but it's tiny. It was where gold was discovered. There's a gully, Gabriel's Gully. You can go there, and we used to ride our horses we used to just fang it round on our horses around Gabriel's Gully because it had all these amazing tracks. It was so much fun. But living in Milton, but also I spent a great deal of time on the farm. My auntie had a riding school, and so from the age of 6, she taught me how to ride, and then from that point onwards, every school holidays was at the farm. And so still, when I say I'm going home to see Mum and Dad, but I'm also going up to see, my uncle sadly passed away now, but to see my auntie Sony and my cousin Jason, his wife Janine, they run the farm now with Sony, and it's my absolute happy place. Yeah, just in gummies. I took the kids down at Christmas, and you're up feeding the chickens, collecting the eggs. There were some lammies, there were some lambs that needed fed. That was really cool for the kids, and the calves. And Sony's got this little fluffy black pony that she keeps so that I can take the kids. We just take them on a lead rein, and they're both riding and giggling their heads off whenever the pony trotted, and just super, super cool. Tractors, like a core memory for Marlo when my cousin Jason came and picked him up. They've got an agricultural business, so they've got loads of tractors. But he came and picked Marlo up when this is another trip when he was much younger, in the biggest, shiniest tractor. And Marlo, just to this day, he's like, "Can we go and visit Sony and Jason and go on the tractor?" He loves it. But that was my life. Auckland was never part of the plan, really. I don't know if I'd ever really thought through a plan, but yeah, I love it down there. That's my alternative universe.
I was going to say, but there's it's okay to be two of you, right? There's like city girl, beautiful frock Sam, and country girl Sam.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I mean, I live close enough to the studio that I can be here for news and breaking news and daily, but also I'm in a rural setting, close to Auckland. But I can't see my neighbours. There are sheep. There are it's got a bit of land and it's nice. That's sort of where I'm happiest, I think. I have lived in the city and I love the city. Yeah. One day maybe I'll come back in, but I'm good at the moment.
One thing I want to ask you about is being a vegetarian, and I know that that has now changed to vegan, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Well, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm doing like 80-90% vegan.
We're dabbling. Yeah. But vegetarian.
Vegetarian.
Staunch for a long time.
Since I was about 10 or 11, yeah.
But I do believe that it did at the time cause quite the family situation. Mm-hmm. And your mum, is it true that she threatened to sell the family horse if you gave up meat initially? So there was actually some pushback, and you had to fight through and eat meat for a while until you secretly started again. Is that true?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, it's true. So I just loved animals. I had a horse, and we had Labradors and cats, but then I also spent all this time on the farm, and I used to feed all the lambs that were mismothered, and you'd ride around the farm, and I understood how it worked. I got the fact that a farm is about, raising animals, which then go away and are killed so that people can eat them. I was a kid, but I got that. But I also had this part of my brain that could not differentiate those animals from my horse. loved, and the family dog, and so I just remember quietly one night in my room, I was like, I had to sort of think about it. I was like, I'm not going to eat meat anymore, and I was like, oh, what about fish? I love fish, and I was like, well, that used to be alive, so I can't eat that either, and so I decided, and I remember deciding as like a 10-year-old. So nothing. And I stopped. Went for a few weeks, and then Mum wasn't having a bar of it.
So what were you doing at the time? Was she plating up, and then you were leaving the meat on the plate?
No, I would not eat anything that had touched meat. So Mum was fair enough. She would if she made a roast, she'd put, instead of the veggies, she'd make a little tray for me that had non-contaminated vegetables.
Sweet.
So she was playing along a little bit, but she was also frustrated by it. And my Auntie Sony didn't really understand it either, and Uncle Rossi, and they were everyone just thought I would grow out of it. And there was definitely some pressure applied for me to start eating meat again. And I thought like, oh, this is kind of hard. And I reckon. To borrow a phrase from Little Britain, I reckon I was the only vegetarian in the village. I actually think I was. Nobody at school understood it. But I don't know, I just had this empathetic kind of, very strong empathetic feeling that I just could not eat animals. And so tried for a little tiny bit, and then Mum went away. I think she might have gone to visit her family in South Africa for a bit or something, and I stopped. As soon as she left, I stopped, and Dad didn't notice. And so when Mum came back, I just dug my toes in, and I called her bluff, and I said, fine. I'm sell my horse. I'm not going to eat meat. And so, of course, she didn't, wasn't going to.
Oh, okay, because I was like, please,
No, it's bluff.
the horse made it out. Okay.
The horse is fine. Yeah.
Okay. And so, okay, and then this year I know that there was you said that you'd stepped up a bit, but we just sort of... Are we hustling with a bit of veganism sometimes, like next level up, like as a part-time?
Look, I have dabbled in being vegan over the years, so I've never ever eaten meat again. Yeah. And just couldn't, it's not something I could entertain. But I've gone more the other direction into being vegan, and I feel amazing. And I know that I am, but I love blue cheese. So it's this.
Oh, bugger!
I know that actually, if I was strictly vegan, I'd feel better, and I'd have more energy, and I'd be healthier. But I also really love dairy and cheese, and it's delicious. So I've decided. Actually, Mike. Mick Roberts, obviously, was he's vegan, and he went full noise vegan in the last few years, and was kind of my inspiration to get back into it. Yeah. Oh. Do you know the most boring thing in the world is talking about being vegan? So I think we should move on.
Look, and do you know what? I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Can I give you some advice for the podcast, Brodie?
Don't talk to people about being vegan. No, and look,
you get sat with people that have other dietary requirements. No.
Yeah. No,
and only want to talk about being gluten free. No.
Okay, no, and I don't think we want to define you as that today.
No.
So we will move on.
Okay. But you could try it. It feels good.
No, I'm good.
You're good.
I love bacon. Okay, so let's talk about presenting the 6 o'clock news with Mike McRoberts.
Yes.
So we go from Milton, we go to Megadeth. We are the anchor of, as I said in the intro, you're in people's living room, you're in people's lounges every night. Talk about that relationship with Mike and how that evolved from day one to the last bulletin last year.
Oh, I adore Mike. I just love him so much. He once said to me really early on, so we read the news together for 8 years, and very early, and it was a little bit of an awkward thing initially, because he'd obviously been reading the news with somebody else for a really long time before that, and then there was a big change, and I came along, and I hope you won't mind me saying this, but he did at one point sort of say to me, I think we just have to treat this a little bit like a second marriage. And I was like, I haven't been married, so I don't know what you mean, but okay.
What are they like? Are they good?
I'm like,
are they better than the first?
In my head, I was like, I'm just going to go with whatever. He knows what he's talking about. I'm just going to go with whatever. But beautiful Mike said to me really early on, he said, I will always have your back. And he has always had my back. You know, people say that, but when I've actually needed him, he has always stepped up and had my back, yeah. And the level of trust that we have is, I mean, 8 years is a really long time to be, I mean, I saw him as much or more than I would see almost anyone else in my life, you know. And to the point where when we did all those live breaking news programs around the pandemic and any kind of live breaking news, we wouldn't even need to communicate about who was talking when. We never talked over each other. And because I couldn't see him, he's in my peripheral vision, but the way that where this round desk, the way that it was, I was ever so slightly in front of him, so I couldn't actually see him. But I would just feel what his body language was doing. He used to do this thing I always knew if he was going to ad-lib out of a story or off the back of something, because he would kind of he must have just been thinking, and he'd sort of tap the desk a little bit. And then it would literally just be, in that live environment where things are unfolding, you're doing interviews, you don't necessarily know what the next thing is that you're going to or what's happening. Yeah, he would just sort of lift his finger a little bit, and I'd know, okay, he's going to ask the next question, and then I'd pick up, and he's amazing. He's amazing.
Another good friend of yours is David Farrier, who you worked with for years, but he's also
he was there at the beginning of Nightline.
He was I've interviewed David. I've actually said to him we need to do it again because it was a few years ago. And
you should.
I love following him. I love reading everything that he does, and I remember just who could ever forget David Farrier, 3 News! You know, it was brilliant.
Well, we did a show together called Newsworthy for a while, which was an evening news program. So I think it went Nightline, and then Paul Henry did the slot. And then,
that's right.
And then when he went to the morning slot, we slotted in and did Newsworthy. And David, so I am a details person.
I would never have guessed.
Things have to be a particular,
Is there a name for that starts with P?
What?
I think you've said it before.
What?
Perfectionist.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I'm definitely that.
Okay, cool.
And even tonight when I do the news, I will go through the bulletin with a fine-tooth comb before we go on air. Gus or Paul or Claire and I, whoever I'm putting the program out, we will have discussions about a particular word. And whether it is the right word, like one word in the whole bulletin, we will talk about for 10 minutes sometimes. Well, maybe not, but that's the level of care that we have with it, that I particularly like to get into that nitty gritty. Dave and Mike, Mike's more of a broad strokes vibe kind of guy. He will tell you that. And David used to be so nervous about the live show that he would come in at the last minute. So part of being prepared and doing the show for me is being there. I'll be in the studio about 15 minutes before we're on air, and anything after that is not, because it's not just me; it's the whole team needs to prepare for the show, and two-way checks for our live crosses and all these types of things. And David would come in under 5 minutes, and I would be sitting there thinking, what am I going to say if he doesn't make it? He was pushing because he would come in and sit down and get nervous,
right, waiting
to go live. And so I implemented a rule. I was like, it's 5 minutes or I'm doing the show by myself.
You can't come in.
And so he got there a little bit earlier. But I understood. It was more challenging for him, whereas I'm very comfortable in that live environment. It doesn't worry me at all these days. In fact, I wish I got more adrenaline out of it than I do these days. Things have to go very badly wrong for me to get a kick of adrenaline.
You know how you said that Mike does this, did that tappy thing? Is there something that you do with your fingers if you're a bit on edge? Or is there anything where you're like...
I think I probably reposition my feet under the desk where you can't see them.
Yeah.
I think that might be my thing that I would do. But, you can't really move around much in the studio.
Now, just for people that are watching, which is very exciting, obviously, for this podcast.
The first time.
But, you're in a sneaker today.
Yes.
Tell the people...
it's unusual.
So even if your feet are behind a desk...
Oh, no, I'll be 100% wearing a full outfit.
Oh, so it's a full outfit.
No matter what,
heel?
you never know when I might have to jump up in front of the wall, Brodie.
So there's always
something
a
could
heel.
happen. Oh, yeah.
How have your feet evolved over the years with a stiletto? My God.
I definitely don't enjoy wearing them as much as I used to just wear them and it would be fine. And now I think, what are we doing, women? Why are we wearing heels all the time? So I embrace the sneaker for day to day.
Yeah.
But I do put heels on with my outfit for the show.
So
I'll wear heels from about 3 o'clock every day. 3 to 7ish.
See, I will MC something now and just I'm an hour in and I'm like, I would love
I've
nothing
made some
more than
bad
to
shoe
take-
decisions for MC.
Because you're like, oh, this looks
Or this
hot.
looks great. And then you're standing up on the stage 3 hours in going, oh my God, I'm in excruciating pain. Yeah.
It takes me back to like the strip circa 2005. And you're like, yeah. You're like, get these off. I'm taking them off. David Farrier's mum, Pam,
Oh yeah, beautiful.
says of you that you're nice and open and a good communicator. She listens and is interested in others and not herself.
Oh.
How important has David, Pam, the Farrier family been in your life?
Oh, so important. So Dave and I have been flatmates, like we've worked on multiple different shows together. His gorgeous mum has sent him clippings of any time she's ever seen me in the news, probably all those mean ones. She used to clip around the edges of the mean bit and just have the nice bit. And she would get all the clippings from the magazines and newspapers and send them to David. So he somewhere has this like potentially quite creepy pile of me. Yeah. No, but Dave's great. I mean, I will call him to this day and talk to him about a story and you know, especially if it's a kind of sticky issue or something. And how do I come out at it? What do I do? You know, he's a very dear friend. Yeah, I love Dave to bits.
You have done and been to some of the most amazing places to tell some incredible stories. As we've said, Antarctica, you've dived with sharks with the main gate of the cage
I've made some bad decisions.
open.
In my
Is
time.
that, do we say that's a bad decision?
Well, what do you think it is?
Yes.
I went shark cage diving with the cage open.
Why? Why would you do that? Who made you? And that must have been before all the media health and safety changed.
Well, so the story was that there was a furore brewing in Rakiura, Stewart Island, between the shark cage diving companies. There were two boats operating, and the locals, the Stewart Islanders, who would dive for power and what oysters or whatever they have done. Not oysters.
And blue cod.
Well, I think they're power divers. I think it was the power
Actually, I don't know
divers.
if people dive for cod. They just
No, I think
get
we
them.
used the boat for that one. But what had happened was that this had been building, and we were planning a story anyway for Third Degree, the current affairs show that I worked on for quite some time. We were planning a story anyway about great whites and the fact that they migrate around Stewart Island and they're enormous, and isn't this amazing? And Doc had been doing some work down there, and then we got wind of this quite intense stoush that was brewing, and we brought our shoot forward because the shark cage diving operators, one of them gave us a ring and said, hey, a local's killed a shark down here. And of course great whites are protected.
Yeah.
They're you can't do that.
No, and also it's their house.
Well, yeah. And so we went down there to investigate this, and I was told by the boat operator that when a great white dies, it releases ammonia from its body, from the carcass. It lands on the seafloor and it releases ammonia, which scares away all the other sharks. And their theory was that potentially, someone had deliberately done this to ruin their business, because no other sharks would then come to where they knew the sharks would normally come to.
Is this and do we is this true?
Well, no. Well, so I interviewed the man that had killed the shark. So
the man did kill the shark.
He did. He says out of self-defense, because he was on a dinghy, a rubber dinghy, and the shark came up and he shot it. Yeah, it was
Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay.
But it took. So we went down there, and Stewart Islanders are pretty sceptical of any outsiders. So luckily, this is where my South Otago heritage came into play, and some of my family down there. People we just stayed on the island for about. This is back when you could do this kind of thing in the media for about a week. First, we
got a credit card, and it was all good.
First, we went and filmed with the boat operators, and this is when and they said, well, they were trawling up and down where they would normally see the great whites,
Right.
But they couldn't trawl with the cage shut because there was too much drag. And so they said, why don't you just hop in, let us know if you see anything, and but we've got to keep the gate open. So I'm in full scuba in the water, freezing cold waters off Stewart Island, in what is sort of like a 3-sided cage, looking into the murky waters, because it was very murky, thinking at any minute Jaws is just going to dun 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 dun, and what am I going to do? One of the worst decisions I've ever made. But for the story, Brodie, I stayed down there. I stayed down there until I got so cold I had to come back up. And part of me was kind of hoping a shark would come along, for the...
I think, thank Christ, it
story.
didn't. Maybe. Anyway.
Yeah, no, luckily it didn't.
And so, gosh, that's it. Because they're still down. Like I flew.
No, they're there. They're there.
Oh, they're there because
They're
there's
there,
that giant chick one. I can never remember her name, and I think it's not Meg because that's the movie. It's not Meg. That's the giant one. That's not real.
No,
there's a giant lady shark that when I watch
They
Shark
do.
Week-
They do track.
Yeah.
them,
There's a huge lady shark, and she's battered around and everything, but she goes back there. I flew over Rakiota after doing the Rakiota Challenge last year. Beautiful day. Flying back into Invercargill, and the pilot was like, "This is going to be a day. If you're going to see anything, it's going to be today." So we were looking for whales. Didn't see any whales. Just before we got to Invercargill, I saw the biggest, longest, blackest, what could only have been a shark, and I was like, I just about got excited. I just about tipped that tiny plane because I was like,
Yeah,
"Look."
I mean, I took my life into my hands in the three-sided cage, but that flight can be the same. Actually,
It's like a van with wings, eh?
And the pilot, for some reason, always talks about 15. I don't know.
No, they've got an age limit, and I'm pretty sure it's 20. I'm like,
They're really young.
We were in the middle of school
Skills,
holidays,
but yeah.
I was like, "Are you on school holidays?"
Yeah, and you can just fit you. We could fit me, camera operator, producer, bit of the kit in the back, and we were maxing it out.
Oh my God, it's so true.
But I've done that. Like I've done that same thing in Kenya. I went to Kenya and filmed a series of stories over there once, and just things like when you're planning a trip, what your expectation is versus like when you're actually there. So we were in Kenya and we had to go to this location to catch our flight, and of course you're expecting an airport. It was a grassy paddock, and so you just have to adjust. Okay, all right. I thought I was going to an airport, but we've got everything right, and I can see that there is potentially a runway in that grass. So we're just going to sit here. The driver's gone, so we're either in the middle of nowhere in essentially what is next to like a game park in Kenya, waiting for a plane to pick us up, or you're just waiting, and then the plane did come. We flew, into this other location in the Masai Mara. You'd be proud of me. I ran a half marathon
Over
in the Masai Mara during the Great Migration. I'd never run more than about 15 Ks, and I managed to finish that.
Was this a race or you just
It was a
decided
race.
to,
No, it was a race.
you weren't just like, hey, while I'm here, I'll just whip out a half.
No, it was like a fundraiser. I was supposed to be doing a story on these Kiwis that were over there, and then they sort of at the last minute were like, "You run though, don't you? Why don't you just do it?" And I thought, well, why don't I just do it? And so here I am. Yeah, just doing it.
So when you're running this half marathon, are there lions, tigers and bears? Obviously
Everywhere.
Oh,
In my head, again, as a Kiwi, I'm like, there'll be fences, there will be people to protect us.
there'll be a gate. Don't mind that lion. There's an electric fence over there. You're all good.
System that prevents the wildlife from reaching the runners.
No.
Well, I was obviously one of the slower ones. And all the brilliant, Kenyan runners, they were amazing to watch. Off they went.
Amazing.
And then us stragglers, we all got, I thought I'll stay in a pack, but no, we all got kind of
You want a
strung
pack
out.
when you're there?
No, it's just, I remember at one point, it was like running through an oven, like a fan oven, because it was so hot, and I remember
Satan's
at one
arsehole,
point
just for the
thinking,
record.
what was that?
I said, like Satan's arsehole.
That's what you call it.
That's
Yes,
my hot version.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, and the day before we'd seen buffalo, lion, various other animals in this exact area, and I remember looking ahead and seeing an acacia tree and thinking, like, what's my plan? Like, could I run to that and climb it and save myself if something came out? And I just remember thinking, no, you're too tired. You're never going to make it.
No.
You will just get eaten. But anyway, I finished that. But the day before the race, we'd travelled for 4 hours, 2 hours there, 2 hours back through the Masai, and I was doing a story about these protected white rhinos, and it was a story about how former poachers had been re-educated and given jobs as protectors of these rhinos instead, which gave them an income and stopped the need to be killing the rhinos for their horns to sell, which I thought was incredible. But yeah, so we're getting closer, and now we're in the bush, so there's a bit of cover, and I'm thinking, and in my head I was just like, these rhinos, I knew that they were looked after specifically by these rangers, and in my New Zealand farming brain, I just imagined like a big wooden kind of arena fence or something. don't know why I did. Looking
This
back,
is a little equestrian
of course,
setup for a rhino.
In the middle of the Maasai. I just thought there'd be some kind of fence.
No fence.
We had just stopped because we'd seen a female lion, not even as far away, like maybe a little bit further than the cameras, and that's it.
In the kitchen of the batch.
Yeah, just through here. And she was, and we'd asked the driver, because we were trying to film it out of the truck, we'd asked the driver to turn it off because it was vibrating, and it was vibrating the camera. And so my camera operator's filming it, and then this female lion jumps up and starts walking towards us. And it's one of those safari trucks that doesn't have windows.
So we're basically back in Stewart Island without a cage.
Without a cage.
In Kenya.
And the female lion's coming towards us, and we're like, start the truck, and he's trying to start the truck,
Oh,
and
nah.
it's not turning over. Anyway, so
we're at
it
Jurassic
finally
Park.
did. At the last minute, she veered off to the side, and our wonderful driver explained to us that the animals see you as part of the vehicle, so as long as you don't stick your arm out or something.
Well,
but I'm like, this is a high trust model. The lion could jump in here and eat us. So that was about 10 minutes before we got to the rhinos. We get to this location, we get out of the vehicle, and the rangers are like, oh yeah, come with us. And I start following these two rangers, and they've got big guns. And I'm like, what's that for? Like, is that to protect us from the right? What's that for? You know? And anyway, following, and then come around a corner, giant rhinoceros. Two of them right there. No fence, Brodie.
No fence.
And I just went, oh. Should we be? Oh my God! Should we be this close? And then had to deal with that kind of the lion, and then the rhino, and then the other rhino, and then trying to deal with that, but also think, okay, I need to film a story. I need to like do some interviews and get some shots and do a piece to camera and what's the story structure, and these rhinos start like sniffing. So there was one rhino. The young male was called Kofi Annan. And the female was called Queen Elizabeth, and she was pregnant. And so he was trying to kind of protect her a little bit, and he was snuffling around, following. And so I'm like scooting around the side of this bush.
Oh my God.
Like he could have just walked over the bush. There was, and the rangers are like, get behind us. And I was like, where is the fence? But no fence.
No fence again.
And I said, what are the guns for? Is that in case the rhinos start killing us or, hurting us? And he said, no, it's to protect the rhinos from the people. So, yeah.
Wow.
Which obviously made sense when he thought about it, yeah. And then we drove back and then we did the half marathon the next day.
Oh,
yeah.
Has anyone ever told you you're a real good storyteller?
I don't know about that.
Just do war stories all day. The other one that I do want to talk to you about is the time that you went with members of Black Power to Mongrel Mob HQ.
Yeah. Which, looking back on it,
again, I'm thinking there were at these times there were no health and safety forms.
Nobody from health and safety.
You didn't have to fill out your form.
Although I did get in a little bit of trouble from health and safety just the other day because I didn't fill in a form before flying with Sir John Key in his helicopter.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
I didn't even think to.
Well,
no, I just thought,
I'll just go out there.
I found out afterwards that I was one of a handful of people that had ever been up with him.
Really?
Didn't realise that he hadn't. I knew his wife Brona hadn't gone up.
Oh, she hasn't gone up?
No.
Jesus.
I didn't know that it was just such an exclusive club.
Where did he take you? Up to the golf? Did you go?
No, we didn't go golfing. No, just a quick flight.
Yeah.
Like just around the North Shore. Yeah.
Every time I'm sitting on a beautiful beach or either one of our East Coast beaches here in Tamaki Makaurau, or even like you go a little bit further up to like Tawharanui, you're like, I'm always like, oh, there's Keezy. There he is.
To play golf.
I have to play golf or any of them.
Yeah.
Any of them.
But yeah,
let's go back to the Mongrel Mob.
Going with. So I think going into the Mongrel Mob founding chapter's headquarters in and of itself would have been quite a stressful situation. Mm-hmm. When we arrived in Hawke's Bay to go and do that interview, we were due to be there at a certain time in the morning and they kept delaying it. And so we went to a cafe and I had a coffee and then I had another coffee and then I was about 4 coffees in, not wise, because then I was like,
I am going to shit myself.
But I was very stressed at this point.
Do I want to use the toilet there? I don't know.
No, well, so I did. I went and then so we got to the headquarters and it was extremely tidy, but it was populated with maybe 10 massive mongrel mob members with their patches on and all kitted up, and they'd granted us an interview, and that was really good of them to do that. It was like I said, a window to another part of the world that I hadn't peered through before. So I was really fascinated. I was in my 20s still at this time. Late 20s though, thankfully. I had a bit more experience, but I remember, I do remember I went to the bathroom, and at this point I was like, oh my God, I just met the sergeant at arms, and I was like, oh my God, like could I? And I remember scoping out the window and thinking, could I escape through there if I needed to? And then I kind of gave myself a talking to and went back out there and did the interview.
What was the premise of bringing them together?
So at the time, the two gangs, when we were speaking to them, so we were talking to leadership in Wellington, also in Hawke's Bay, and there was a big problem with methamphetamine usage around the country, but within the gangs. I mean, the gangs realised that meth was taking a very big toll on not only their membership but their families, and they wanted to talk to them about getting off it. And So the Black Power chapter that I met with in Wellington actually allowed me into their meetings, and where they would test each other for meth use on a weekly basis and hold each other accountable for not using the drug. And we went out one day with them and they went diving, and it was pretty cool. Like I remember just thinking, these are just people like anybody else, They're just wanting to look after each other and do better than they have in the past. And to me, that was admirable in and of itself. Did I ask them hard questions? Yes, I did. Did they always answer them in a straightforward manner? I don't think so. But I kept asking. But so we wanted to get the other side of it, because the mongrel mob were telling us that they were doing the same thing and that they were going to try and work together. And I actually, part of that story was the first interview with Reitu Harris, who was a founding member of Black Power, the first interview he'd done in 20 years. And I said, why are you doing this? Why are you working with the mongrel mob? And he said, because they're our brothers, they're our cousins, they're our uncles, they're literally our family members. We might wear red and they might wear black, but we are whānau. And why wouldn't we want to help our family? And these guys, sure, they've lived through their pretty controversial lives, you could argue, and sure, they've done some bad things, and many of them have been in and out of prison for various, at times, violent crimes, but they are at an age where they actually want a better life for their kids and for their grandchildren. And so then when we went back up to Hawke's Bay, went in and interviewed the head of the mongrel mob founding chapter there, a guy called Rex Timu, and then we went and met up with Black Power, and for the very first time, this had never happened before, we went back into their headquarters with members of Black Power so that they could have a sit-down chat about how they might work together. And Brodie, if I thought that it was stressful the first time I went in, when it was just the mongrel mob there, when we went back in with Black Power, it was so intense. I felt, oh my God, it was just, I remember thinking, I don't know if we really realised what this was going to be like. Because while the leadership had said it was okay, the membership, they were on board because they fall into line, but they did not like it. And
was it just you and a cameraman?
And a producer, but
okay. But like
no one was
thin on the ground. We're thin on the ground.
Probably needed. Yeah, but I mean, what else? How else would you do it? I mean, that's the best way to do it.
Did people? How was that received? Do you remember at the time? Were people like, "Why are you giving these guys airtime?"
Yep. It was on the front page of the paper again, and why is this person? Why am I this? I guess at the time, young woman. Why do I think this is something I should be diving into? And I mean, it's an interesting story, and I will always cover interesting stories. Yeah, I picked up this kind of stuff again last year around the gang patch ban, and spent a really interesting period of time with.
You got the lads on speed dial now.
The lead, I do.
Rex,
I've got
long time no see.
Got a few.
You got any time next week?
Got a few numbers, but it was really interesting again to touch base and say what is this actually going to mean? If the government follows through with this legislation, which we know they have now, what kind of impact will this have? And I had to go through this kind of welcoming / sort of initiation ceremony where they lit a big fire, and we had to wade into the awa, the river in the Bay of Plenty, and before I could sit down and interview the head of Black Power movement, Whakatane, and that was kind of amazing, like spine tingling and amazing, as TK did this incredible kind of welcome and karakia and water and standing with my feet going numb in the river because it was absolutely freezing. We filmed that series during the final week of Newshub, right before the first week of 3 News. So if life wasn't stressful enough as it was, Brodie, we threw that in the mix. But it was great because I was out in the field doing what I loved, and it was a reminder of why I wanted to keep doing this job.
On that note, let's go there then. Let's go to last year.
Okay.
Your career flipped upside down in front of the nation. You've worked hard to not be the news because that's not why you do the job, and yet you have to present the news about the news being about there being no more news of the news of RIP News.
Yeah, that was about how it went. Yeah,
something like that. Months prior, your marriage had ended, and last year one of your best friends died. How do you want to do this? How do you want to do this year with me here now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm just thinking about Jess. So
you got this.
Yeah, Jess would laugh because right before she passed away, I remember speaking to someone and they said, surely all of the shit stuff that can happen in your life has happened. And then I got the news that she'd gone into a coma and flew to Australia and she passed away. Thank you, Brodie. Oh, I just love her so much. And our birthdays were 2 days apart. We grew up together. Her dad was the principal at my school, like a very close connection. And so that was the culmination of 2024, the year that everybody wants to forget. Well, not everybody, but, people in the Newshub world, I think. Look, I have been amazed to learn just how much you can deal with. Mm-hmm. I remember, my partner and I separated and that was sort of, was that end of 2023? And then the Newshub shutdown was announced at the beginning of 2024. And I remember I was driving to work this one day at the beginning of the year and I'd organised the kids and, I was like, I think that I'm back on track and, life's tough. I'm probably at like the very end of what I can cope with in terms of, just keeping it together day to day, juggling all this in this new world that I'm in. But I think I can do it and then wham, that cataclysmic news about the shutdown of the newsroom that I'd worked in for my entire adult life for 18 years. And, oh, God, it was, people say, things were tough for the media, surely you should have seen it coming. Mike summed it up beautifully, I think, and he said, we thought that they may have amputated a few more limbs before they decided not to resuscitate the patient altogether. And I think that, yes, we knew things were tough in media, but I did not think that there was going to be an entire shutdown of the Newshub newsroom, bringing to an end, decades of journalism on 3. Now, I know that the company didn't want to do it. I know that it was just one of those incredibly difficult decisions. And clearly Warner Brothers Discovery still values news because here we are making the news for them every night with 3 News and doing that in partnership with Stuff, which is so clever and incredibly gutsy from Stuff to dive into that and to do that. But to get that news right when I thought like I'm finally things are going to be looking up and then, oh my God, wow, I'm being made redundant. And of course then we didn't know that there was going to be this new iteration of the news that nobody had even thought through that, talked about it. There certainly wasn't any kind of commercial arrangement in place. That didn't come for months. So, my relationship had ended and then my career had ended.
So what have you learned about grief? What have you learned about grief? Because those three things are like on their own massive things to deal with in anyone's life at one given time. You got to, I don't need you to even have the answer. You probably still
No, I mean, I don't know
out.
that I do have the answer. I think that it has taught me to value what you enjoy and love in the moments that you get to enjoy it and love it. You know, like I think that my friendship with Jess was so incredibly special. And I'm lucky to have had her in my life, you know. Working in the TV3 newsroom as it was initially, I mean, I went from when it was 3 News back then into the Newshub phase, and now we're back in the 3 News phase. But, you know, how incredibly lucky have I been to work with that incredible group of people, but also to go on all the adventures that we've spoken about today and the hundreds, if not thousands of others we haven't even begun to talk about. And, you know, I remember thinking, I'm so glad that I have known how lucky I am in the moment that I've been doing those things. And maybe that's like the kid from Milton, still kind of like, this is my job. Do I get to actually do? I mean, I would literally just come up with ideas, put them to my boss, and then be off to India to film for 3 weeks, you know, or back in the day. Or like, here's my proposal to go into the jungles of Costa Rica and film for a week over there. Or maybe I want to go back to Antarctica for the 3rd time. This is one we're going to do this time, which is different, you know.
Yeah. The snow's changed.
Yeah. We're going to do sea ice instead of mountains this time. Yeah. And, you know, how amazing to be able to do that stuff. And I was always aware of how incredible that was. And there's something about, and you'll understand this, there's something about doing a live show. You have to be 100% present. You can't, maybe you know, radio, audio is slightly different, but television, everything is broadcast. So you can't be like on your computer or looking at notes or, you know, gesturing to your producer like, what's happening, you know, because you're on screen the whole time. So you're totally present. And I don't know, walking into that studio every day for 8 years with Mike, the Third Degree studio before that, the Nightline studio before that, all the various shows I've been on, I get a kick out of it every single time, as I do to this day in the 3 News set, you know. And yeah, I mean, when the Newshub shutdown happened, I was just so sad that was coming to an end because of all the brilliant, beautiful people that work on. It's like an orchestra, in like a symphony every single night, because you cannot put the news out alone. You need your whole team to do it, and everybody, and it's, you have to do it every single day. This is the thing; it's relentless. It's just turning up and doing it every single day, and looking around the newsroom and thinking, it's everybody. Everybody is losing their job and their career potentially. It's all of us, and that was just so hard to fathom. But you just had to, I don't know, in terms of the grief and dealing with that, you just have to keep getting up in the morning, keep putting one foot in front of the other. Some days are horrendous and some days are beautiful.
What was that last bulletin like with Mike?
Did you watch it?
It was pretty, I bawled.
I did too,
like,
at the end. Yeah, no tears till 7 o'clock was my mantra that day.
I bawled for a number of reasons. I like to cry, but it was like it was mourning the loss of something that's very important, and knowing the which I think sometimes the public forget, all the humans behind it.
Yeah,
all the humans behind it, and how everyone's such a family. So I don't know how you held it together to the end there.
I'm not sure I know either, Brodie.
Were you like pinching each other? Don't you fucking go.
Oh, so we knew when we were doing that bulletin that there were a couple of hundred people upstairs watching. The whole team had come together for that, you know, from all over the country. Everybody was in Auckland, and we just had to get through that last bulletin, and then go to the party afterwards. And then I had to start a new show the next day.
Oh my God, wait, yes, that's right. Oh no, yes.
But putting that aside,
cut the fireballs.
Putting that aside for 1 second, it's the hardest show I've ever done, and because of that, I think I can do any show now. I didn't realise that at the time, but nothing can be as hard as that show was.
Yeah.
Because of the pure emotion of it. It was just another news show, but we also had to again do the news about the news closing down. That was our news.
Our news.
That was our
We
lives.
were the news.
While we were presenting that news, it was the weirdness
news.
of that. But it was the sadness of it as well. And I remember sitting in the green room beforehand. And I just felt like I had electricity coursing through my entire body, and I kept flicking my fingers, and because I just had to kind of like get it out of my system. And I'm not generally like on set, I'm not a fidgety person. I can just sit there and calmly kind of whatever happens, I don't flinch, because you learn that, And Mike was in his own kind of headspace. Actually, do you know what? I was just remembering something that happened. When we went into the studio, I asked them to play down the lead story so that I would have seen it and it wouldn't be like I was seeing it. We wouldn't normally have seen the lead story because it's usually cut so late. And I just thought if I see it, then I'll be okay. Like it'll less chance that I'll cry, basically. But then Mike goes, "No, turn it off." He was like, "I don't want to watch it until I have to." And so his kind of approach was, I'm just putting it out of my mind. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to go with that approach as well. It was hard. It was tough. I don't know how we kind of got through it, but it was also a really beautiful thing to be a part of because of the team. And then when we did go upstairs after the end of the show, everyone had kind of created this like guard of honour the whole way up the stairs and out and into the newsroom, and Mike did this phenomenal speech just off the cuff because he's so incredible. I was ready to pass out. At that point, it had been months and I was done. I was like, at this point I'm done. And then I thought, oh, now I have to do a speech. So I did a very short speech and Mike did a beautiful, beautiful speech. And then, we just had, I don't know, there was so much love from the team and we had a really special role in it in a way. And I felt honoured to be able to play that role.
You are navigating life as a solo mum. How is that? And are you doing okay?
This is the first question you asked me. Yes,
I know.
I
said that the question had a lot of layers.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm great, actually. I'm doing the job that I love. My two beautiful kids are 5 and 3 now, and I just adore seeing Marlowe's in his first sort of year of school. He did a term last year, but this is term 1, and he's just absorbing knowledge at just this. Oh, I love watching that and being a part of it and doing his reading homework with him. And he's phenomenal with numbers. He remembers numbers. The other day we were driving to the farm, and he goes, "Oh, Mum, how much longer will it be?" And we'd flown down from Auckland. It had been a long day. And I said, "Oh, actually, it's only about 2 minutes. We're almost there." He starts counting. We pull up. This is a 5-year-old. And he goes, 130. That's 2 minutes with 10 seconds left over.
Oh, boy.
Looking in the back seat, going, what? Yes, it is. And that's incredible. But how do you know that? And he said, because 1 minute is 60 seconds and 2 minutes is 120. And I thought, this kid's going to be good with numbers, yeah. And Amaya, she's 3. She's absolutely gorgeous. She is so funny. She's got a strong personality. So does Marlo, but yeah. We've recently got 2 kittens, 2 little ragdoll kittens. So we've expanded the family out. Amaya calls them the Cattins.
Oh, bless
The
her.
Cattins are awake, Mum. Oh my gosh, she's so cute. Yeah. But no, it's good. Life is challenging, but that's what I enjoy. I've always enjoyed a challenge, whether it's climbing a mountain, a tough story, Dancing with the Stars, the news every night. Do
you mourn the loss of your relationship? Do you mourn the loss of the companionship?
Yeah. So when anybody that decides to live a life with somebody else, you're kind of putting all your cards on the table and you're all in. You have decided on a life together, and we had a couple of kids, obviously, and when that reality shifts in such a massive way, you then. What I discovered was it's like a daily, sometimes like a minute by minute readjustment to the life you thought you were going to have and then the life you actually have. But we're good, we've got a good relationship, and the kids are good, and actually, everything's ticking along pretty smoothly.
That's why I think it's good that you allow yourself the blue cheese from time to time and that you just don't go strict vegan, because I just think this year...
I'll do that for you, Brodie.
I just think this is not the year to be super hard on your passion for cheese, okay?
Okay.
So you eat the damn cheese for 2025. Okay. We'll get into Kiwi Yarns quickfire. I feel like we could sit here all day, but if you've got things, you've got another place to be. What have you learnt? Oh, we haven't even touched on mountaineering. Actually, no, before mountaineering.
Mountaineering, yeah.
Climbing mountains.
So what happened was I did Dancing with the Stars, and
I remember bumping into you.
Because did you do the season
airport.
after me?
No,
you did the season after me, I think. But
I remember.
Did you see me when I was going to Aconcagua?
Yes, I bumped into you in the airport, and you'd done Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
And you actually were like,
Was it off to Mendoza in Argentina?
and you were like, I'm just a little bit lost, so I've just felt a little bit lost after Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah.
So I'm off.
I'm going to climb a mountain.
Yeah.
So that's precisely what happened. So I likened Dancing with the Stars to every week was like you stood at the bottom of this enormous mountain that you had to get to the top of so as not to humiliate yourself on live television at the end of the week with a dance that you couldn't, you had to learn the moves to this new dance. New style of dance, new song, new choreography, obviously.
Yep.
Plus
I'm
doing
there.
the 6 o'clock news every night and trying to keep it together in my normal life, right? And so I felt like you would climb the mountain, do the performance, and then you'd have to get back down the mountain and then start the next mountain. And my season that I did, I think, was one of the longest ones. It was 12 weeks.
Yeah, it was massive.
So it was 100, I worked out at the end, it was 103 days in a row that I didn't have a day off, that I was on live television. I was on live television 6 days a week, and the one day that I wasn't, we did a full dress rehearsal, so I may as well have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I was up, we started rehearsing at 7 a.m. At 3, I would come to the studio and get organised for the news. And then sometimes we would do more rehearsing after the news. And I, obviously it was the successful Dancing with the Stars campaign.
It was very successful.
It ended well,
With the glitter ball.
There is a mirror ball trophy.
Oh, mirror ball, glitter ball.
Somewhere.
Yeah. I didn't quite get it. I got
my
second.
name on it, yeah. I actually gave it to the charity, Writing for the Disabled, because... Yeah, I don't know. I got to the end of it, and I think it was an amazing show to be a part. Like, it's a big machine.
I don't know how you read the news. I do not know how you did the news at night time.
I don't know how I did the news either.
Cooked.
Yeah, it was a massive challenge, but I loved it. I loved it. Is there anything better? You're probably going to say yes, but is there anything better than the feeling of when you do learn the dance and then you're on live TV with the very real threat of peril? Because did you ever get the I'm going blank right before the performance? I remember.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
I remember turning to
What are we
Aaron
doing?
literally right before we would go out to do the dance, and I in the ad break beforehand, and I was like, Aaron, I can't remember any of the moves. I can't remember. I'm blank. And he would just look at me and say, "It's okay. Take a deep breath." And there's this technique you can do where you do a big fake smile, and your brain doesn't know that it's fake, so it sends you the endorphins. So we would do that, yeah. So you do a big smile, and then we'd go out onto the dance floor. And you you'd have to stand there during the ad break.
You're making me nervous like we're about to do it. Far out.
But and then it would come back and they'd play the video from your week. Inevitably, I'd be crying. and then they go, they introduce your dance and you do the dance. But that feeling of this is 100% live. The whole country's watching this. I don't even know if I remember the moves. But when it did come together with the music in the moment, what an extraordinary feeling.
Yeah.
But then you finish the season, and even with the joy of having won it, I went into a massive dip and felt kind of empty, and just going back to doing the news every night wasn't enough. It didn't fill me up like it used to, and I couldn't understand this because it always had. And so that's when I got this idea to go and climb one of the world's highest mountains, and I did my due diligence. I looked into it. Did realise it's nicknamed the Mountain of Death.
To climb a mountain. Yep.
6,962 metres. So it's Mount Cook with Mount Cook on top. That's how tall it is. And off I went to climb the mountain. But what I realised is that in the moment that I was thinking about it, and then when in deciding, I had the same excitement of when I was on Dancing with the Stars,
Right.
or any of those other stories that I was telling you, like that anticipation / fear.
That I
It
could
is-
run out of oxygen at
Yeah.
any moment. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that part's not fun. But
No,
yeah,
that part is not
no,
fun.
the altitude is not fun. But the mountaineering part is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, climb the mountain.
And so is that still something you're interested in?
Then I had Marlow, and look, I still love being in the outdoors. I don't know whether I need to get to the top of a very tall mountain. Everest Base Camp, great. That's still over 5,000 meters. That's still a lot of altitude. But I've got some mountains in my future that I would like to visit. Yeah,
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learnt most about yourself? I was going to say since 23-year-old cold sore. I wasn't going to say cold sore.
I wish I hadn't told you the cold sore
that
thing
wasn't
now.
in my, no, take that. It's not going out. Sorry. What have you learnt the most about yourself since 17-year-old Milton to Megadeth Sam Hayes
Until now.
till now?
What have I learnt the most about myself? That's a big question, Brodie.
And that.
I think I've learnt that, it doesn't matter what people think. It only matters how you feel and whether you think there's value in what you do. I've learnt that yes, you can do hard things. This is one of my mottos. You can do hard things. We can do hard things. And actually, in the doing of them, whether it's, I don't know, any of the things that I do in my normal day-to-day life, which people might think are abnormal things to do, in the moment it might be really difficult, but you get that sense of achievement afterwards and satisfaction. And that challenge, life does begin at the edge of your comfort zone. You can retreat when you need to. It's been a turbulent year or two, and yeah. Sit on the couch, eat the blue cheese, watch Cillian Murphy, and drink the Chardonnay. Whatever it is, read a book. I actually am a massive book reader, and that is where I go when I need to have some downtime. But what have I learned? You can do it. You might think you might not be able to do it, but you can do it, and anybody can actually.
If you were going to go, if I said to you, look, there's an opportunity tomorrow to Megadeth are in town. How are we going to tackle that? Are we going in same as
I'd bring the tape.
Yeah.
I'd bring the tape. I'd show them the tape.
That's a good idea. I love that.
And because you wouldn't believe what I look like on that tape. I should probably find it for you so you can
Find
have a look.
that.
It's
So we
hilarious.
can wind that on the old
I
B-roll.
looked like I would have been a fan of Megadeth.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to give you your Kiwi Yarns quick fire questions.
Okay.
What kai is on the menu for your final feed?
Oh, I love food, and I love cooking. For my final,
Yeah.
does anyone really know when that day is coming?
Well, no. But, yes, some people that get in
we're not gonna
places
go
that
there,
we
are we?
no.
Yeah, let's
just,
not go there.
Just your. What's your favourite one then? If you don't want it to be your final.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I love. I actually really like simple things when it comes to food. Like let's not go into a degustation menu, but I love freshly baked bread with butter.
Oh.
I love black coffee.
Okay.
I love grapes. My favourite food is actually mango. In the whole wide world, it's mango.
In the whole
wide world, if you gave me a mango, I would be so over the moon happy.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So we're going mango, black coffee, freshly baked bread with butter.
With butter, yeah.
Can't argue with that. Now, this one you probably would have wanted time to think about, so just take it. Don't overthink it. If I gave you a magic wand, to change one thing in Aotearoa, what would it be?
I would like to take every single child out of poverty. Yeah, I just wouldn't even have to think about it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would
Wonderful.
like to make sure that every kid in this country has what they need to flourish, to feel safe and looked after and warm, and to get an education and to have full tummies and a present from Santa at Christmas time.
Perfect. Your favourite Kiwi artist or song?
like Anika Moore's children's songs are etched into my brain thanks to the kids. Massive fan of Marlon Williams and that voice. Yeah. I heard him sing on stage at the March 15 memorial not long after that atrocity, and he came out onto the stage just when Cat Stevens was there, we were down in Christchurch at Hagley Park. Mike and I were doing a live show, and he came out just a guy with a guitar, and it's the most magical thing I think I've ever heard. You know, I still am a massive fan of Lord. I did the first television interview she ever did at the beginning of her career and followed her around for 8 months. Kept telling my producer at the time, like, that song, it's going to go stratospheric. And he's like, how do you know? And I'm like, have you heard it? And ended the story with her getting a Grammy. So I still put Lord on every now and again and have a good listen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, where would you love to go in Aotearoa that you haven't been? And is there a place that exists?
I've been to a lot of cool places in this country thanks to the job. Yeah, I have seen a lot of this country, but I haven't done all the great walks, so I would quite like to do the great walks. Haven't been to the Chathams, so that could be interesting. And I've spent a lot of time in Fiordland. My uncle,
we haven't even talked about your
Richard
uncle.
Hayes, Hannibal Hayes, is down there with my Auntie Carol and the family. And so I've actually been very lucky to spend quite a bit of time in a helicopter in Fiordland.
Yeah.
But not enough, because how could you ever get enough of that? So I would love to spend some more time in Fiordland, actually, if I could call it. We took some family that had not been down there through to Milford, and I've been there a lot. And I hadn't been for a while. And just the drive through the Homer Tunnel, and it's just, is it even real? It's so beautiful. Yeah, spectacular.
I've been in a couple of the helicopters down there too. Bloody beautiful. Right, your last question of the day.
Okay.
And the brand new batch. Before we go and move back to 6 o'clock news.
Yeah.
You're stranded on the Auckland Islands, in particular, Disappointment Island.
Oh, what? Are you talking about the actual Auckland Islands in the sub-Antarctics? Because
Yes.
I've tried to go there for stories, but you have to take a ship, and no one would let me take 2 weeks off to go. Well, to go and do the story.
Yes,
Tell me
that's
more. I'm into this.
And
yes.
you're in particular, you're stranded on Disappointment Island. That's a true story that is down there.
Okay.
What are the 5 things that you would take to avoid being both stranded and disappointed?
Lip balm. I don't go anywhere without my lip balm. And I need some right now. No, I would take my lip balm, sunscreen, because that's going to be problematic, right?
Yeah.
And then the last 3 would be books. I think I would just take.
I mean, one could be 3 books if you like.
Oh, can
One
I make?
can
Okay,
be-
so one can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd just have to take some books because I'd be reading a lot. You need a camera because the flora and fauna is incredible down there.
She'd be filing a couple of stories even though she's stranded.
That's right, I would actually be. I've booked some.
Gus, you won't believe where I am, but I've got a story. Play it tonight.
Well, do you know, I've booked some time off coming up because I've realised that downtime is important. But my problem is, so I'm looking at going overseas and supposedly on holiday, and at the same time, I'm like, maybe I could interview that person and interview that person, and I shouldn't be doing this, but that's what I am looking at because I can't help it. Okay, so
you got one
to
more.
avoid disappointment, yes, I've got my lip balm, I've got my sunscreen, I've got my 3 books, I've got my camera. Do I need an EPIRB so someone can save me?
Yes.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah, so
very
one
logical.
my cousin can fly in on the helicopter and pick me up. Yeah,
Brilliant.
I'd stay there for a bit first.
Yeah.
I probably should have put food, but
Yeah, because
I'm not eating
you'd be eating just the plants. You just have to grab some bush.
moss.
Yes, the moss. Well, that's great. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming to the batch and being the first person at the batch.
It's been my pleasure.
Just
it's been good. We should do this again, though. I think maybe without the microphones, with a glass of wine.
And blue cheese.
Yes.
Look, I'll quickly roll the rug up. We'll bring the desk in. You do what you need to do.
Got a show to do. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming on Kiwi Yarns. But also something that you said before, it's taken a village to put this first episode together.
Every show does, yes.
So thank you to everyone who is behind the scenes. Thank you to you. And thank you to everyone for listening. That was Kiwi Yarns. We'll see you next week.
Ka kite anō.